Welcome back to Country Dance Spotlight. And my name is Rob Ironside. I'm the host and president for the Country Pride Dance Club and also one of the instructors. And with me today is Stuart Old. He is our grants director. But Stuart, tell us what else you do with the club. Lots of stuff.
Yeah, I volunteer. I do some work with marketing and promotions and that kind of thing. And then I also am learning lots of different kinds of dances. The ones that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, some of these ones. The topic for today's podcast is what dances to learn for a wedding. And this is some real grassroots stuff that people need to learn. The last couple podcasts, we've talked about social situations that people are in and, social dance survival. If I had to pick the top four dances, I mean, maybe even the top three, we're going to talk about four dances today. These are the ones. The first one, waltz. Second one, two-step and jive. And then the last one will be nightclub two-step. Nightclub two-step, I think a majority of people will not have heard of that one, but we're going to talk about it anyways, just because of the music that you use for it, and it'll make sense as we go. So, first one we're going to talk about is waltz. I think there's a huge misconception out there about slow music. A lot of time people, they'll have a fantastic song that they want to use as their first dance for a wedding, and it's a really meaningful song to them, and it may or may not be a waltz.
Yeah.
Same thing as we were talking about this before, is that people don't know the difference between a slow song, and the DJs in particular, and an actual waltz. A waltz is in 3/4 time, and some slow music, if it's still in 2/4 or 4/4 timing, could actually be a nightclub two-step. But let's talk about waltz first. So, Stuart, again, if you've got any comments, just speak up.
Well, this is actually good stuff for me to know because I have found like the dances I've learned with Country Pride really useful for weddings. I think that's one of the best places to sort of put them to use. But I have never learned nightclub two step, and I cannot remember a thing about waltz. So this is good review for me.
Okay. So as I started to say, waltz is one of those popular dances. A lot of time, you'll have people come to us and say, "Okay, this is a song we want to do for our first dance at our wedding," and they want some choreography to it. A lot of time, it is actually a waltz that they pick, and the words and the meaning, I guess, into a waltz song, they're different than other music, just because the timing itself is in 3/4 time rhythm. The basic steps for waltz are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And waltz will have a real, if you can see my hand, a real ebb and flow, kind of like waves.
Mm.
And it's very graceful out on the dance floor. Doing the basic steps to waltz is really simple. Doing waltz really well is really actually pretty tough. But the music is not, you know, how, how do I describe it? It is not really fast. It's slower music. If it gets faster, then it's what they call a Viennese waltz.
Mm.
So when you're dancing to waltz, if I can just pull up my notes here, the waltz is in between 75 and 95 beats per minute. If it gets really, really slow and it's in the range of 55 to 65 beats per minute, and it's not 3/4 time, then it's going to go to what we call nightclub two-step, which we're going to talk about next. So a lot of people too, when they do waltz, they'll just do the steps on the spot, whereas a waltz will have movement that moves around the floor in a circular rotation. And like I showed you, rhythms or waves of music, like water, there's rise and fall to the dance. And of course you can do turns and all that kind of stuff as well. But it's very romantic. The music is beautiful to it, and it's different than all the rest because waltz is the only one done in 3/4 time. So does that make that simple?
It does. I mean, I think when you watch people doing a waltz, it looks really graceful, and there's good reasons for that. I mean, do you how long do you think it takes someone to get the hang of it? Is that a that's probably a 6 week lesson?
If they want to do a bunch of turns, we start off getting people, because the rhythm is completely different than any other dance. We have them do what we call a box step. Then we have to
Hmm.
have them start to move it around the floor, and then we have them start to do some turns. But to do waltz well, people need to understand partnership. They need to understand connection, and definitely lead and follow. So it's one of those dances that I would say, at very minimum, takes probably 3 or 4 lessons. Yeah.
And although it moves, does it go around the floor in a line of dance, or is it not like that?
Yeah, it goes around and around in
Okay.
a line of dance. It's not completely circular. It's more like clover leaves. It kind of weaves in and out. It's kind of hard to show in today's video, but
I guess so, yeah.
it has a bit of a different shape to it than just two step or polka. So moving on to the next dance, it's not one that people would recognize or have probably heard of very often, but I wanted to put it on today's podcast. Is nightclub two step. Nightclub two step gets confused with waltz just because it's slow. Like I mentioned, it's slower than waltz, and it's either 55 to 65 beats per minute, maybe almost up as fast as waltz, but it's danced as a dance. It's just slow, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick,
Hmm.
slow. So it just goes back and forth. It doesn't go around and around the dance floor like waltz does. It's pretty much a stationary dance danced in the middle of the floor. It moves back and forth, but it's not one that does a big rotation.
Okay.
Um, you can do all kinds of turns to it, and you can make it look really graceful. But it's danced to 2/4 or 4/4 timing, not 3/4 like regular waltz. The other thing that's a big, if you want to call a descriptor, where I talked about waltz having like waves, nightclub two step is like blades of grass blowing in the wind. It just goes back and forth, and it's not like Hawaiian dancing, but just a nice graceful dance.
Right.
Okay, and I was just going to mention too, there's a lot of popular music is done to this kind of slow music and romantic music. And so a few times people have come to us thinking that this song that they picked was a waltz, but it actually wasn't, because it wasn't in 3/4 timing. And so we've taught them nightclub two step, and they loved it because it fit
I was
them.
going to say, as long as they end up still liking it, then you're good, right?
Yeah, we gave them the choice and showed them both, and because the steps are easy for doing nightclub two step, yeah, they liked it, and so they learned it.
I feel like nightclub is really under the radar.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Before I got into dancing a little more seriously, I had, yeah, I never knew it either.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, maybe a bit because I know I've seen you do it, but I'm not sure if I were out and a couple were dancing nightclub that I would recognize it right away that that's even what it is.
Yeah. So the next one we're going to talk about is two step. Two step
Right.
by far is the most popular dance out there. Now, having said that, I will say it's also not an easy dance to dance to. Something the first two dances that we just talked about, waltz and nightclub, are danced, and it's called a phrased dance, because when we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in waltz, a basic set of footwork of 6 steps fits the music of 6 beats perfectly. Same thing with nightclub two step. When you go slow, quick, quick, slow, that takes 4 beats, which fits 4/4 timing perfectly. So they actually feel right when you do the steps, and if you don't do them right to the music, then it feels off. Two step is different. Two step is what we call a non-phrase dance, because the basic steps for it, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, takes 4 steps, and you're doing it in 6 beats. So the first quick, quick is 2 beats. The slow step takes 2 beats, and so does the next slow step takes 2 beats. So it's 4 steps done in 6 beats, but the music is danced in 8 counts. So it's 6 beats long, but you're doing it in a phrase of 8. So it's not a phrase dance. It doesn't fit the music properly. Only when it cycles around every 24 beats do you actually hit the heavy first beat of the first phrase again when you start the dance. So I know that's kind of technical. We talk about that a little bit in our classes, but just know, even though it's one of the most popular dances out there, it's not easy just because of that one simple fact.
No, it's not easy. There's a fair bit going on. It's a fun one to practice. I find I have to practice it, otherwise I get crummy pretty quickly. Of course, I'm not an instructor. It's a really fun one though, in terms of all the different things you can do.
Yeah, it really is. The music is more fun and upbeat. There's lots and lots of music that you can dance
Lots.
to.
And I will say, if anyone watching this hasn't two-stepped and what you were saying about the 6 counts and all that, I've never even thought about when I was two-stepping, and it's fine because I'm not a choreographer, right? So as long as you remember the footwork, it's all right. You do okay.
Yeah. So all you got to remember is quick, quick, slow, slow, or we use the counts 1, 2, 3, 5. So we teach people the very basics. And then they also want to learn some turns. So we teach them how to do an outside turn, an inside turn, a wrap, and a sweetheart position. But the big thing is to teach the basics and help people stay on the beat of the music, because you definitely want that. And we also show them how, and if you're just learning these dances for a wedding, you need to also learn, have a bit of basic partnership. So hang on to your partner, how to hold her properly so that she knows where you want her to go.
Yeah, what do you think is the best way to describe that? Like, is it frame?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Like, I think for on both sides, but especially for the follow, if the lead has a good frame, that makes a huge difference. And you can tell it right away. And everyone can learn this, but it makes a big difference as far as like, okay, now I know I can communicate with my partner. This is going to go well.
The biggest complaint we get is that the woman says, well, he's not leading me properly. So if he could just lead me properly, then I could follow him. Well, that's fine. But sometimes the woman doesn't provide a frame, or she's too soft and he's got nothing to hang on to. So she's we call it loosey-goosey. She's too loose on the floor. So the job for the lady is to maintain a good solid frame so that if he moves her hands, her body follows. So if he moves his hand, it doesn't wrap around her head before she decides that she's going to follow that lead. So the lady's job is to have good frame. The guy's job is to lead. Mm-hmm. And so if they do that together in good unison, then you've got good partnership. We've talked about this, and I forgot to mention this in our other podcast, but I'll mention it now, that if you see a partnership up there, and let's say the couple is 80 years old, and they're not doing a bunch of fancy turns, nothing crazy, but they just move as one. They just look good on the floor. That's partnership. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, one's leading, one's follow, and they just look good together as a partnership.
Yep.
Okay. The last dance that we'll talk about is Jive. Jive is a fun introduction into the swing community. I'll just mention the basics of Jive here. First of all, it's done to a lot of fun old classic rock and roll music, and Jive is danced to 2/4 and 4/4 time music, just like we've talked about before, and you can count it as slow, slow, quick, quick, as step, step, rock, step. Okay. Mm-hmm. But if you notice what I just said there is slow, slow, quick, quick, that's very similar to a dance we just talked about, two-step. Because a two-step, you go quick, quick, slow, slow. In Jive, you're going slow, slow, quick, quick. Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same counts. So again, you're dancing a 6-count pattern of dancing in 4/4 or 8, 4/4 timing, but in 8 beats of music. So again, it doesn't fit properly. So it's kind of off every after it only gets back on every 24 counts. But by far, again, this is one that people have just a hoot with out on the dance
Yep.
floor, and you can get into all kinds of swing moves that you wouldn't have done. And you do it typically, you do jive on the spot. It doesn't go around and around the dance floor like two step. It's more of a stationary dance with all kinds of turns and spins and that kind of thing.
I feel like this one, Jive, is so versatile. A lot of the moves, this is the swing influence, I guess, that a lot of the moves you can use in different dances. Please correct me if I'm wrong with some of this stuff, but in my experience, it seems to be the case. And so, like you said, lots of rock music, but anything that's in 4/4 time, and there's a lot of contemporary music, a lot of what they call dance music now, but like it can all work with it. So you can basically take it anywhere. And it's really easy, I think, to lead. Partly because you're not going around the dance floor like you do with two step, right? So if you don't have a lot of room, basically only need like 10 feet around you. Yeah, it's great. Still my favorite, but obviously I haven't done them all.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about speeds of music, there's a dance we call East Coast swing. It's done at 130 beats per minute to 150. But when the music gets really, really fast, like if you're an old one, Elvis Presley's Blue Suede Shoes and Rock Around the Clock, Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lewis, those ones are quite fast. And so if you can't do an East Coast swing to it, then you can do jive to it because it's easier to do a step, step, rock step than it is to do a triple step that you do in East Coast swing. So
Yeah, that's like an aerobics class.
it is. So really, really fast music you can actually do jive to, and some of that old rock and roll music is exactly that way. I think as the night goes on, at some weddings, DJs typically play a lot of music. So instead of people, they're either doing single, dancing by themselves with a partner, or they get into doing jive music, and just it's party music, right? They're just
Yes.
have a good time.
Yep.
So if you have jive, and well, as I kind of put these ones together, if you have waltz and you have an understanding of nightclub, two step and jive, you've got a wide range of music covered as far as being able to dance to just about anything that the DJ might put on. Understanding that waltz, as a brief recap, is done in 3/4 timing, um, and nightclub is in 2/4 or 4/4 timing. Two step, same thing, 2/4 or 4/4 timing, and same with jive. Um, the steps for jive and two step are very similar, but knowing the difference between them, where two step goes round and round, whereas jive is done pretty much on the spot. Um, yeah, and if you have an idea of dance floor etiquette that we did in our other podcast,
Yep.
you're good to go. I mean, you can go to a wedding and you'd have a blast. Any last
Yeah,
thoughts?
it'll make the experience a lot more fun because now there's a whole bunch more you can do while you're there.
Yeah, I think you'd asked me at one point, what dances would you learn first? I think if you learn two step, that's probably one of the ones that people need to know, be able to do a lot. And then you could just play around with jive, and then waltz, and then nightclub last, if you had to prioritize these. But if you learn one or two of these dances to start off with at one of our classes, maybe you'll catch the bug and want to learn more. So, any last
Yeah.
thoughts, Stuart?
I think this is a good thing for people to know in case they do have a wedding coming up. But yeah, these are definitely four keepers, and I'm looking forward to learning more about them too.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today for our What Dances to Learn for a Wedding podcast. And we'll see everybody on the next one.
Take care.